Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and today we'll be taking a look at Corsair's 4000x RGB ICUE edition. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so today in the video we'll be taking a look at Corsair's ICUE 4000x RGB. What a lovely case it is. It's available in a few options. The 4000 series is actually available in tons of different varieties. There is obviously the white version, which is this one, which is kind of grey on white. There's also a black version. Also there's an airflow edition with a different front panel, and also there's a solid version, and all of those are in the different shapes, sizes and colours. So plenty to choose from and pretty much something for everyone. But is it the right case for you? Well, today we'll be going through it, having a teardown, looking at different pros and cons, and see if it is actually the right choice for you. Okay, so let's start off with the important bit, the price. Now, the price of this at the moment in the UK is around about the £100 mark, sometimes a little bit more. I actually picked this one up from more.co.uk, which is via Amazon, and I paid about £115, which at the moment on the run up to Christmas, there's very limited stocks. So actually really lucky to get this. Depending obviously when you're watching this video, that may increase or decrease the prices slightly, but realistically you should be looking around the £100 mark for this as a manufacturer's recommended selling price. But what do you get for your £100 give or take a few? Well, you get a dual tempered glass case with ICUE RGB fans, and you actually get some pretty amazing build quality. And also along with it, you get some really cool features and pretty much all the flexibility you could possibly want in a ATX tower case. So where should we start from? Well, probably the best way is to start from the front, because the front is really the key part of this. So as you can see from the front, as standard, we've got 3 fans included, and these are the SP Pro RGBs, which are from Corsair, and again they're part of the ICUE system, so they plug into the ICUE core node, which is included as well. So you get a lot of value for money for this. The fans on their own generally are quite expensive. Looking at the older case like the 465X, which came with pretty much a similar setup, the fans on their own are about £50–60. So essentially the case is about £40 worth, which seems to me like pretty damn good value for money. So the front section again is interchangeable. You can, if you want to, swap out this glass panel for either the solid panel, which would be a little bit mad because you've got RGB fans in there, but you can swap out for the airflow panel as well, which I'll try and show some B-roll of. And essentially all you need to do is to just pop it out. It locates, as is always with a lot of these Corsair cases now, with these kind of metal balls which fit into the receivers in the 4 corners there. It's actually a really nice thing to do. You've also got the glass, has got a white edge around it, so if when you're putting it in, you get your greasy fingerprints on it, they're not going to show through from the back, so you just have to give the front a wipe over, which is really easy to do. So it keeps it all nice and clean looking. Another nice touch, which actually there's a lot of that on this. There's a lot of design elements been thrown into this case. Some little things, which really please me actually, things like the Corsair cell logo on the tempered glass there, and there's all kinds of other little bits, like actually on the mesh front here, we've got just a little logo on the bottom there, which again is a tiny thing and most people will probably never see it, but the fact that it's there just adds to that air of quality and class about this case. So moving a little bit further, like I said, we've got this full mesh front, which for me actually is perfect because it doesn't have those plastic cross members in there, so it doesn't detract from the actual fans themselves. And of course, with this and the completely clear glass front, the RGB is going to absolutely bleed through, which possibly you've seen from some of the B-roll we've shown already. Taking a look at the actual filter itself, the plastics that they've used across the entire case and also the color matching process they've done, if you look at the whites between the glass, the plastic, the metal surrounds, all of it is tied in fantastically well, and the color matches are absolutely brilliant. And that works the same for the white sections and also the grey sections, which they've tried to color match as much as possible, even with things like this top removable filter, which the grey is almost identical. I can barely tell the difference. Lighting wise, you might see it slightly different on camera, but essentially to the naked eye, it looks exactly the same as the plastic as the top section. So kudos to Corsair for tying it all together so well. So taking a look at the fans, like I said, we've got these 3 fans which all plug into the node controller. Really nice and simple. I really do like the Corsair RGB setup. It is a little bit more on the pricey side, but if you're in the Corsair ecosystem, then there's a lot to like about these fans. Also as well, they are extremely quiet, and I've got a rated speed of somewhere between 400 RPM up to around about 1300 RPM, give or take 10%. So absolutely perfect for that front section. Obviously, if you wanted to, not that I would recommend it, but you can take these fans out and replace them with 140mm fans. You can put two 140s in there if you wanted to, or you can stick with the three 120s. If you really wanted to, you could take them out and put a radiator in there. There is a little bit of room behind to do that, but we'll take a look at that when we go to the inside section. So let's move around to the side. So looking at the side, we've got this almost entire covered section with the tempered glass, and again matching it with the front, we've got this white section which has been painted on the back just to give it a nice border edge, which I think looks, again, really stylish. And to take the case off, or to take the sides off rather, there's two thumb screws which I can barely reach. And what is slightly unusual on this, it actually took me by surprise first of all, because I was thinking, how the hell does this side panel come off? Rather than traditionally, when you undo the screws and you push the case side back, you actually flip it out. So there's little tabs there and there, and all we do is a little bit of pressure and swivels out, and there's actually retention lugs at the front of the glass that holds into the case there. So again, slightly different and slightly unusual, but actually works really well, and in my opinion is much better than having four thumb screws on the outside edge, which would detract from some of that lovely clean lines on the glass. So now we've got access to the inside of the chassis, and actually the chassis inside is borderline perfect. There's one thing which, possibly two things which detract from it being absolutely perfect in my opinion, and actually we'll probably go into those first of all just to get them out of the way. Now the first thing is in the rear here, in this section, you can only mount in there a 120mm fan. So for it to be kind of perfect, I would have loved to have seen the option for a 140mm fan in there. Again, not a massive deal breaker. The fact you can actually get a 120 in there and you have got some height adjustment on it as well is absolutely fine, but it would have been perfect if you could fit a 140 in there. The other thing which is kind of taken away from being perfect is the top mounting. Now you can actually fit in here a 240mm AIO radiator, and this is one of the few cases from Corsair where they actually do specify that you can actually fit them, and they actually list on their website the specific models which can fit in there. So essentially most 140mm AIOs are going to be absolutely fine in there. There is an option to actually put 280mm AIOs in there, but that is going to be a little bit dependent on your motherboard and your RAM, etc. So there are actually mounting places for it, but they don't actually specify that it will physically fit, and they don't actually list one of their own models that fit. So obviously if you are planning on putting a 280 in there, such as like the Arctic AIO, then do pay close attention to VRMs at the top of your motherboard and also the height of your RAM, because that is going to be a limiting factor. When we actually do the build in this, we are actually going to be putting the Corsair 240mm AIO, the RGB version in there, the Platinum. That is basically why we bought this particular case. We did have originally the 220T, but after building in it and having the radiator mounted up front, it just didn't work out for us. So we're sending that one back, and this is what we're going to be building in. So if you want to see how that goes, don't forget to stay subscribed and click on the notification bell and all that kind of good stuff, and you'll be notified of future video releases. So that's the negatives out of the way. Let's take a look at some of the positives. Now, positive section is this mesh on the top, which I quite like. The fact that this is solid on the side, I really do appreciate that. I don't want to see what power supply is in there. I've got no interest in that whatsoever. I just want to see the PC and all the cool parts inside. We have got this ventilated area, so if you want to, you can mount a power supply either face up or face down. The choice is entirely up to you. And you can actually mount in these two sections here two 2.5-inch drive bays, which can be moved from the rear. There's two on the rear, so if you wanted to, you could take those out of there and stick them on the front. Entirely up to you. And the cutouts at the back here for cable pass-throughs are absolutely cavernous. You could fit probably your whole hand through there, which is excellent. So if you want to put through USB 3 cables, SATA cables, data cables, all that kind of stuff, you can have no issues whatsoever. And that is really nice to see. Even with a motherboard installed, you've still got plenty of room to pass through cables, which is absolutely excellent. Further along in this basement section at the front, we can actually put in, like I said before, you could put a 360mm radiator in this front section. The only limitation there is the actual drive cage, which is included. Now you can remove the drive cage entirely if you want to, so if you're not using any 3.5-inch drives, you can just remove that sucker out of there and forget it ever existed, and you can fill this with an AIO. But that is one slight consideration you'll have to take into account, is your power supply, the hard drives, and then an AIO at the front. Also at this bottom section there's another really nice feature, and that is the Corsair logo and another little yellow tag there. Now the way this is all tied together with the grey, the white and the little yellow emphasis, I really do appreciate this. I'm a slightly older person, and I do remember quite vividly in the late 80s there was a Vauxhall Astra Club Edition, which is white with grey and little yellow pipes on it, and I loved that car, and this so reminds me of that particular model. It is ridiculous how many memories have been evoked through this case. I'll move on. So looking at the rest of the case, you've got this cable section here, which is for covering up your cables. I really like this. Rather than having rubber grommets, that kind of stuff, you've just got this nice pass through, so it doesn't matter where your cables are passing through. They could be up here, they could be down there, they could be in the middle, they could be wherever they want. You don't have to worry about rubber grommets being in a specific place so your cables don't look all weird and whack. This will just come out and they can go completely horizontal across there. And again, when you're doing cable management, straight lines always work much better than diagonals, so that is going to be absolutely perfect. You can actually remove that section if you want to aid cable management while you're doing it. There's a simple thumb screw on the back, so that can come out and you can fold this piece out, get it out of the way just to do what you need to do, then put it back in after. But again, really nice touch. Another nice touch, which some of you who saw my P400A review will appreciate this a great deal. When you've got fans which are on the inner edge of a case, it's always nice to have some way of actually routing those cables somewhere that makes sense. Corsair, in their wisdom, have actually got cutouts kind of here, here, and here, so the fan cables can all be taken out through the side and then hidden through the back. I absolutely love that. Why do not all case manufacturers do that, or at least have perforations all the way down so you can do it wherever you want to? For me, it just keeps it so much cleaner and so much tidier, and I think that is why a lot of people, when they are making kind of showpiece PCs, do generally tend to go with Corsair components. So moving back into the main section of the case, so we've got this huge cutout here, so if you're using aftermarket coolers, that sort of thing, backplate access is going to be absolutely fine, no issues there whatsoever. All of the standoffs are actually mounted, all 9 of them, for the standard ATX size. Obviously, as we always say in these kind of reviews, you can fit in here ATX. You probably can't get extended ATX in there due to the way that the cable management section is, but certainly micro ATX and ITX, should you for some real reason want to, you could put those in there quite easily. On the top section, there are 3 big cutouts there, so for passing cables through. So in this top corner, you've got the one for your supplementary power, for your CPU. You've also got these ones here, which will be excellent for routing cables for AIOs and for the CPU coolers and all that kind of stuff, or possibly RGB strip connections, any of those kind of things. Really nice and easy, and again, been cut out really well. And there's a decent amount of depth there as well, so you should be able to fit through even the chunkiest of cables through there. So I think that pretty much covers everything inside here. As far as I'm concerned, yeah, this all works really, really well. So moving around to the rear, so to speak, we have got the traditional I/O cutout here, which is, as you'd expect from Corsair, is perfectly done, no sharp edges, etc. and works as it should. Slightly limited here with the 120mm fan options, so yeah, you've got a little bit of height movement there, but that is about it, only a 120mm available. Nice to see there is an option for a vertical GPU mount, even though in these cases we know it's not really the best of ideas to have a standard air-cooled cooler on a graphics card this close to glass, because it will, yeah, it'll bake it basically. But if you're going down the water-cooled route and you want to have a nice water-cooled GPU on the front there, then yeah, that's going to look absolutely brilliant, and yeah, it's handy that that is there ready to go. All of these PCI Express expansion port slots are all, again, painted in exactly the same shade of grey as the mesh top and also the plastic front. Again, it's just another little thing where they've just tied it all together so well. They could have just gone out and put in white blanking plates, which would have been fine, or just used black ones from the other model, but they've actually deliberately gone out and got grey ones, which I approve. Another thing which I should have noted really is basically just little things like this where they've rounded this corner off. Now from an engineering point of view, that is actually pretty difficult to do and does take a little bit of work, and it is actually solid. So I actually don't know how they've managed to do that, but I appreciate it anyway. Another thing actually, before we spin it around even further, another thing which is again part of the design ethic of Corsair is you'll probably notice that all of the airflow paths in this case are triangular. Rather than going honeycomb, which pretty much everyone does, or going for holes, which is been done for years and years, they've all got this kind of little mini triangle look, which is basically replicated everywhere. So even onto something like the top panel filter, this from first inspection, you'd look at it and go, yeah, just a top filter. But on closer inspection, you look at it and the actual design in here is exactly the same as that, but in grey. I love it. While we're in this section, I suppose at the bottom we have got a removable dust filter, which is on a kind of sled design as well. Unfortunately, this isn't grey. I would have loved this to have been grey as well, just to kind of seal the deal. I guess it's one of those things that is hidden away, so the chances of you ever seeing it are limited, so we'll give them a pass on that one. So moving around to the back of the case, and again, the exact same deal, thumb screws on here. And actually another kind of, I wouldn't say it's awesome, but another cool thing about the thumb screws in this case, all of the thumb screws are thumb screws. They're not combination threaded screws and thumb screws. There is no screwdriver access for these at all, so you can only ever tighten them up by thumb. So that means they're never going to be overly tight, that you can't undo them by thumb. Well, in theory anyway. And the same release mechanism, so you undo the screws and then just push from the sides, and then this flips out and detaches. Again, we've got exactly the same, so we've got those 4 mounting points which go into here. Now for this section, this actually works out really well, because if your cable management isn't great, you can put the side on and basically just force everything in, and it's going to flatten all the cables, which you shouldn't really do, but you might have to. So yeah, pretty cool. So this is the business side, and this is where you can spend probably most of your time sorting out all the cabling, although Corsair have included a lot of things which actually will make things a lot easier. So there's tons and tons of punch outs on here, and in all the right places, so you could get a really clean build in this. So even sections such as here for the cable pass-throughs, there is a tie-down point next to each one. Again, a really nice little touch. They don't need to do that. There's no reason why they had to, but the fact that they have done it is just brilliant. And the same goes for down this side section. You've got some cutouts there as well. So if you're running a cable up through, you can tie it all down and make it look really nice. Again, on this section here, we've got these removable sleds. And anyone who's done a case review in the past, they'll know where I'm going with this. The fact that you can actually open up this case and all the thumb screws you can just undo, and they haven't been over tightened at the factory, so you have to go and get a screwdriver even though it is a thumb screw. It's just little things like that which do make a great difference. And again, these caddies, really well made, actually quite strong, and the design ethic, even though you can't see it, they've still maintained it. So there's a little yellow sort of nylon thing on there just to tie it in with the rest of the little flashes of yellow around the case. I love it, I really do. This is great. So those are really nice to use, and again, it's all on the thumb screws, easy to get to, etc, etc. You can, like I said, if you want to, take both of those out and put them on the inside, so put them above where the power supply shroud is. No worries there. Again, that would give you a little bit more extra room here, should you have extra cabling, etc. You have got actually a pretty decent basement size down here. You can get 180mm power supplies in there as standard. If you want to go a little bit bigger, then you would need to move this tray over, as I have done already. I've moved it as far possible forward as it can go. There again, 2 thumb screws, and those are normal thumb screws with cross heads in them. So yeah, they're to give in somewhere, but that can be moved, so that comes back about an inch or 2. So if you do want a bit of extra room down the front there for the all-in-one radiators, you can do, or just a little bit of general space anyway. Again, bottom grill section, all using these diamond cutouts again, which is awesome. All along this bottom section as well, there are cable tie-down points, so when you're running your cables down through this section, you can just make it super neat and super clean. I'm actually quite worried about building this, because there really isn't any excuse to do a poor job of the cable management in this thing. There's so many things which are designed to make life easier for you that hopefully that is going to be how it works out. It's just really simple, but I am a little bit concerned that I may not quite do it justice. But like I said, if you want to see how that goes, don't forget, click on subscribe and the chime icon, and you can find out how that goes in the future video. So let's take a look at the actual ICUE setup. So we've got the lighting node, which is just here, which you can connect up to 6 RGB devices. As standard, we've got the 3 connected already, so if you wanted to, you could just go and buy another set of 3 of the fans, 2 in the top, 1 in the back, job done. Absolutely cool, no problems at all. And with this, all of the cabling comes down and basically terminates into 2 parts, one of which is SATA for power, and the other is a USB header. So do make sure, if you're buying this case, that you actually got a spare USB 2.0 header on your motherboard, so you can plug this in, because it will only work through the ICUE software. You don't actually have to, you can just leave it disconnected and it'll go through the standard kind of unicorn puke thing on the front anyway. And even if you add in extra fans, the same applies. So even if you've got a really old crappy motherboard with no RGB support and no USB headers and this kind of pre-1990s, actually that probably wouldn't work, but you get what I mean. You can be a really old board, it doesn't make any difference, and the lights will just do their own thing in the unicorn puke mode. But if you do want to take control of them with the software, with ICUE, you will need a spare USB 2 header. So taking a look at the actual cables that we've got here, so we have got a USB 2.0 header, which is for the USB, as we said before, for the ICUE. You've also got a HD audio connector. There's a USB-C front panel connector. You've also got the USB 3.0 connector, again for that front panel. There is a SATA power connector, again for the ICUE node. And then you've got the connections for reset switch, power switch, and your power LED. So pretty simple, all pretty much blacked out, which looks nice. A little bit of ketchup and mustard on the HD audio cable, but yeah, not the end of the world. So taking a look at the drive sleds. So the drive sleds are black plastic, not grey plastic, as Kath actually pointed out, which is unfortunate, but not the end of the world. Again, you don't really expect it to be everywhere. You can, in these, you can mount 3.5-inch drives in the normal sled, or if you want to, you can use the screws there to put 2.5-inch drives. So all in all, 2 3.5-inch drives, 2 2.5-inch drives, or 2 2.5s, 2 2.5s, or combinations thereof. Obviously, you can still put your M.2 drives on your motherboard, so plenty of expansion there. And I think realistically, 2 mechanical hard drives in a case like this, for a massive games library or whatever the case would be, video editing machine, etc. I think it's going to be absolutely fine. I don't see any issue with that whatsoever. Again, this cage is removable, so if you want to, just undo the thumb screws and take the cage out altogether to give you an absolute TARDIS-like section in the bottom there. And again, you've got this area here for cable management, so your main power cables can be routed up there quite nicely. And you do actually get in the accessories box, which we haven't had a look at yet, you do actually get some more of those tie-down sections. So in this box, we get a bunch of cable ties, again, to make use of all those tie-down points. Get another 2, I think it is. Yeah, another 2 of the Corsair branded tie-downs like these, so you can put them, there's a strap there, and a strap there, so if you want to, you can kind of mix and match them a little bit, do what you like with. And you've got all the screws all separated for the different types of mountings on the boards. So flipping around to this side if I can for a moment, just to take advantage of those holes. So you've got holes there for those cables, holes there for those cables. So to get the fan cables through, you've already got holes there. You don't need to drill them out yourself like you would with the Fantex case. And if you want to see what I'm on about, you can click on the link up in the top corner. You can see my Fantex P400A review. So let's take a closer look at the bottom. So we've got 4 rubber feet, which come off of these grey feet, which actually, again, all match up, all grey. Yeah, we've been there. I'm not going to go there again. So we've got our removable filter, as we saw before. That's all well and good. And again, got the diamond mesh there, which is excellent. And you can see there's the mounting sections there for the hard drive caddy, etc. These feet are actually a little bit bigger than usual, so there's a good kind of inch and a quarter of distance between the floor and the actual case itself. So airflow wise, if you want to get airflow into your power supply, it's going to be fine. I wouldn't suggest putting it on carpet. That's never a good idea. If you are going to put it on carpet, probably a good idea to put the power supply with the fans facing up to take air from the inside. But you guys probably know that already. Moving on to the top section. So we've got our I/O section, so we've got the power button, which is illuminated normally. Obviously I've not got a board in here, so you can't see that. You've got a yellow color-coded USB 3.0 port, which I appreciate a great deal. Again, ties in with the little yellow flecks everywhere. It's fantastic, it really is. USB Type-C connection, you've got a combo headset microphone jack, and you've got your reset switch, which is all well and good. And we've got our filter on the top, again, with our little silicone bit of yellow on there. And a nice thing they've done on this, which I've just kind of noticed, is they've actually offset the magnet on the top. So if you have got a AIO or fans in here and you've got screws in this section, they're not going to interfere with the magnet, so it sticks off the top a little bit. That is so cool, because normally if you've got fans in here or screws and they're quite close tolerance, you get like little bumps in the top section, which just looks really awful and weird. So it's just little things like that, take in the care and attention. Yeah, excellent, appreciate that a lot. So radiator wise and cooling wise, if we go back to the front section, so just a quick recap. So in the top section, either 2 120s or 2 140mm fans. Radiator wise in the top, a 120, a 240, possibly a 280 at a push, but again, you may need to look at your tolerances on that, but a 240mm, no problems at all. In the back, you've got the option for a 120mm radiator or a 120mm fan. At the front, we've got the option for 3 120mm fans, 2 140mm fans, a 280mm radiator with 2 fans or a 360mm radiator with 3 fans. As regard to the cooler on the inside, the gap between the base and the glass, looking at 170mm, so you could actually just about squeeze in Corsair's A500 cooler, which you can check out the review up here. Again, if you went for the darker version of this, then that might actually be a really good option for this, to go for that kind of all Corsair setup. Maybe, maybe not, who knows. But anyway, I think personally this, because it looks so nice, I think it would be justified to say that one of the Corsair AIOs in here would look absolutely magnificent. The Corsair ICUE system, albeit slightly expensive and a little bit temperamental at times and lacking in compatibility with certain other motherboards, is still, in my opinion, one of the nicest looking RGB setups on the market. And speaking of which, I'm going to quickly put a power supply in this so we can take a quick look at what the fans look like when they're illuminated. So there we go, there is a power supply quickly thrown in there. And actually, I did look, and there is a massive amount of room with the standard ATX power supply in there, and with the hard drive tray shoved right to the front. There is a good like 5 or 6 inches of room there, so you've got loads of room for wiring, etc. But more importantly, look at those fans. I really do like the Corsair fans. The RGB setup and the way that it kind of syncs from one to the other, and again is programmable from the ICUE software, so it can go through the whole lot and you can do all these different color things. I really like. Some people out there don't like RGB and don't get it at all. I totally understand. It's one of those things that you either you're really into or you're not, and you're just not bothered. I personally really like it, and I just like the colours. Pretty colours. What more is there to like? We're going off topic now, aren't I? But anyway, they look really good. Nice and easy to use. The ICUE software, like I said, is pretty flexible. You can do lots of things with it. Or if you want to, just set it to a single colour and forget it. It's entirely up to you. There is that element of flexibility to it. So I've whittled on for far too long, but I thought I'd show you what the fans look like at the end, and hopefully you've seen it for some B-roll, etc. As always, the lighting in here and the camera doesn't really do these justice. You really do need to see them in person. And as a comparison, actually, if you look at the fans on the PC behind me, which are the InWin Saturns, which actually I rated recently as my favourite RGB fan, you can see the difference in the way that the light works on them. These definitely do look nicer. They're more expensive, they're not quite as universally compatible, so that is why the Corsair fans didn't get a #1 in my previous best and worst poll, but they certainly do come up there with them, and they do look fantastic. The light spread, etc. is exceptionally well done, but you'd expect that at this kind of price. So let me know what you think about this case in the comment section below. Am I a fanboy? Am I gushing too much? I personally think this is a great case. It's got pretty much everything you could possibly want. The only thing I suppose really that is missing from it is possibly a mesh front. A mesh front rather than the glass might be the way forward, but let me know what you think in the comment section. So that's going to wrap this one up. I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you guys in the very next video. Thanks for watching.